This time I'm going to be making a bit of a different video. Usually I'm making armour and props to show people how it's done, but this was made before I made my first videos and started the channel. So this time I'm going to do a deconstruction video and just show this thing all being broken apart. Now this is my T45 power armour from Fallout 3. Now when I made this, I had no idea what I was doing. There were very few tutorials or anything else on how to make it, so I made it up as I went along. It didn't come out that badly in the end, but I made quite a few mistakes and things I just didn't need to. So hopefully I can show you guys, and then you'll know what not to do, and hopefully what to do, because I did learn a lot doing it. This is the inside of the chest. You can't see it that well because it's such a small shape and I've got to aim it up towards the camera on a stand, but that's why we're going to take it apart. Okay, the handle on the front, which is by here, I made, literally it's two pieces of dowel stuck in with glue, with hot glue, into holes I drilled in, and then a bit across the front, which has fallen off over the years, which was just a bit of dowel with EVA foam circles stuck on it to make it look like a handle. Yeah. I stuck them in quite hard, it appears. Now, these shoulder pads, I originally made them so they'd rotate, but that they always just ended up falling down. It turns out my shoulders only go about this far, so aren't actually able to push this up to this position, and it looked quite funny on the first two outings, so I, took that off. And as a result, I glued the heck out of the hinge, as you can see, so that ain't going anywhere. I'll just rip this off. Ah! Ow! Okay, and the other side. Okay. With these, because I wanted them to be actual hinges, I cut layers of EVA foam to the right thickness in circles, and then cut a larger circle around the outside, literally to act as a hinge. It works, and I did the same on the legs as well, so it worked out quite well. Okay, and that's the bit I put over the end, which I sprayed without any form of sealing, and that's what spray paint without any form of sealant looks like on top. Which you can see the same here, it does not look good. This is the second shoulder that I did. The first one I tried ballooning out with expanding foam, which I'll show you in a second how that worked out. But basically it's formed EVA foam. I used a hot air gun to warm it up and melt it, and then I stuck paper mache over the top because I had no idea how to seal EVA foam at the time. And that's why it's, to be fair, it doesn't look that awful, but you can see there it's clearly paper mache. But I should put the warning on now that when doing EVA foam and heating it up to bend it, make sure you're in a well ventilated area with a protective mask on, because it does release some quite toxic gases which will build up after a while. I found that out in here by doing an 8-hour stream of just heating up EVA foam in a completely sealed room. It's bad, don't do it. Okay, so now for taking the paper mache off. Also, sorry, I didn't realise this, but if you can't see it there, there is a Brotherhood of Steel insignia drawn on with felt tip pen. There. And that's because I didn't have the time or ability to paint when I did this, and I've since got a lot better at painting, to put it mildly. So now I'm going to check myself. Now that I'm actually getting this stuff, I could probably as you can see, I've attempted to do some moulding and shaping with some expanding foam. This, I believe I was running out quite badly when I hit this point because I'd used so much of it doing the other one. You'll see how bad that is in a minute. But ultimately, the joke is on me. This is the right shoulder. It's been on the left for years. And that hook there is literally 2 bits of foam stuck together, and I just drilled a hole through it with a hole saw, and the same here and there, but that's literally it. So that's one shoulder. Now the second shoulder, okay, the second shoulder by here will come off basically the same way. As you can see, the paint is showing straight through because I have all the colours showing straight through, because I sprayed this as well as I sprayed everything else, but unfortunately EVA foam absorbs paint and makes it look tacky and terrible. So this is the second shoulder, and this very much has the same construction style as that one, but I put way too much expanding foam in here, hence you can see it's all dome shaped, whereas the other one is actually shoulder shaped. I don't know why I didn't cut this back. I think I was just being stupid at the time, or lazy, or rushing. Oh well. Also, for those of you who have seen my sign writing now, where I paint all the details on and the name and everything else myself, that's how I started. Just Sharpie, first thing in the morning for a convention, so I thought, hey, no one's going to tell who I am, I've got a helmet on. On the bottom here, you can clearly see that it's been separated from the surface. That's because when I started, I didn't think it would shrink. So it originally started stuck and then pulled off. Hey, it happens. I should say, as I'm pulling this off, the technique that I used for making this, I have put the foam down and then waited for that to set. I literally had a bag on top, hence the giant size of it. I covered it over with masking tape and then went over with the paper mache. That's also probably why it separated, because I was relying on masking tape to hold it. That was basically found in a video that showed me how to make foam armour, and I figured I'd try it. But that video is very old now, and I'm not too sure the person who made that video would stand by it anymore. Actually, they probably would. The results were really good at the time, to be fair. I didn't know what I was doing, hence this being so bad. Okay, as you can see, I used way more foam on this one and had way more difficult time sculpting it. Now, I haven't used expanding foam like this since, because it's not that much use to me. But, I mean, if you want to use it, generally that's how. But I wouldn't use it again, because I got much better results than these since. Okay. When I painted this, I did 2 layers of priming on top of the paper mache, and then went over with chrome coloured paint. It's basically chrome enamel paint, and it worked out quite well. And then after that, I went over it with just spotting of grey, because just to make it look older and more worn, because it's supposed to be hundreds of years old. So yippee. So that's the shoulders. Now to the main chest section. Now, in here, you should just about be able to see where I ripped it apart, because when I first made this, I made the chest plate, but I made it just a little bit too small so I could get into it, but I couldn't get myself back out. And that was a bit annoying when I tried it on, because I got it on, I was at home on my own, so I didn't have any help. And then I tried to get it back off and I couldn't actually reach the shoulders to be able to pull it up, and I couldn't fit through. So I had to cut these much deeper, and anyone who's seen my build since, you can pretty much get my elbows through the holes now. But this one here, I mean, here's my arm size. Yeah, my arm's pretty much the same size as the hole in this one, and I mean, it's tiny. So yeah, I literally had to tear the whole thing apart while wearing it during production. First off, I'm going to take the back off, which should cause me some issues for all the wiring that goes to the back, but hopefully we should survive. Sorry about that, but this is the flexible ab plate, which is just made to bend and stretch like that, so that when I bend over, it makes this motion instead of, you know, it actually bends and flexes instead of just being solid, so I can actually have some motion around my chest, which came in very useful because you cannot see down in this, meaning I had to spend most of my time in that position to look down around me, and if there's a kid, you cannot see them in this armour. So this stuff here is made for the undersides of sofas and beds, and to be fair, here is the stuff, the webbing that I wanted, that I couldn't find at the time that I got afterwards, that I stuck clips onto to hold it all together. But that webbing is what I had to use back then. Do note, that webbing is stuck on so hard, they actually tore one of the plates off in the process of attempting to remove it, so it's not to be criticised. This is the neck plate. It seriously... Right, this is the neck plate. Yeah, it was seriously just stuck on. I have just 2 layers... Oh, okay. I had 2 layers of EVA foam going across there, and then I stuck them on top. And I just stuck this straight on top like that. Now, back at the time, I didn't know how strong EVA foam would be at holding together, so I even have wooden braces and things like that supporting it. Now, these turned out, since I've learnt that these are completely unnecessary, so you don't actually need reinforcement to hold it together. EVA foam's actually quite tough, but, you know, first time. Again, it is all paper mache'd over in the layers like that, and then massively spray painted. But one of the things I've learnt since is that this head hole should be bigger than your head just slightly, because this one, I mean, that's all the gap. It's got like that little bit, it's got that little bit between the sides of your head and the actual thing. It just makes it more awkward to wear. My holes now have about double the space that this had. It's easier to get them on and easier for the person who's helping you to get them on and off at the end. Also means that they are less likely to choke you by pulling backwards because there's a weight on the back and slamming into your throat. That's not a nice thing to feel, but it's something I've had to do. And this here is because when I first took this out, I basically sweated out my entire body of water in about 5 minutes, and I decided that having a drink would be very helpful. So I got this, which is basically it's an attachment that goes onto a water bottle, and then I held the water bottle in a belt on my waist and I could drink from it. And the helmet on this thing was like this big around my head. Couldn't move it, and you could just move your head freely around inside. So I just drank from that. There are loads of photos out there that I've seen of people posting of this armour where I'm drinking. I'm just like, and someone's just come up taking a picture of me. I'm just like, okay. Well, you can't tell I'm not being serious. I'm still posing. I'm still standing in like a standing pose with my rifle, so nobody can tell. So again, take that out. Now, to put that in, I just drilled a hole in the EVA foam by there, and then just stuck the pipe through. And it held up enough. I had a little cable tie by there to make sure it doesn't slide down too far, and that hung up just about there in front of my face, so I could just go. It may not look very dignified, but that is a real lifesaver when you figure out just how much you sweat in this armour. So, also that's been in there for 4 years. I'm not using it again. The pipe is no longer see-through. It's all faded, falling apart. It looks horrible. So I wouldn't use it again. Okay, now this here is the chest piece actually opened. Now, this has a lot of wiring in it, as you can see by there, and, you know, the wiring looms everywhere. Now, if I remember correctly, this one, or is it this one? See, okay, this one is the controls down to the arm, because I had a set of sockets down there, which you could use to control the fans and everything. Now that didn't turn out very well, down to the fact that the fans in this were so ineffective, I needed to run them at 100% to do anything. That got annoying, trust me. But basically, the fans didn't work well enough. I had to add more in afterwards. And trust me, when I show you the fans, you'll be surprised they didn't have enough power to do what I needed them to. But, okay, so... Okay, luckily Windows was just messing up. That concerned me for a second. Okay, we're still okay. Okay, I just got to this part of the video while editing and found out that, oh yeah, I saw a little problem there, and I'd completely forgotten I'd actually seen that. But at this point there was actually a problem with the recording, and the computer didn't tell me and just carried on acting like everything was normal. And it carried on for about another 20 minutes worth of recording. And then literally everything went down at once. So I lost I lost the entire recording. And also I didn't put an end to the actual video file. Now luckily my editing software has put an end back on it, so it actually works. But yeah, this is why this video took so long and I mostly quit, is because it just went, oh yeah, this thing that you can only do once. And as you'll see later on, I was getting quite emotional taking this apart, because these armour suits are pretty much like family, and pulling them apart like this, even for a video, it's really quite sad actually, and I don't want to be doing it. To be fair, I am now surrounded by armour, and I don't have enough space in my studio anymore, and that's why I had to do it. But yeah, so yeah, a bit later on it's probably going to completely crash. I haven't actually seen that bit yet, and I'm going to be very upset and very annoyed when I come back. You'll see when, because I remember doing it. Right, so this big loom here was the controls down to the arm, and I just had a keypad there that you could enter commands on, and then you could like change the amount of fans or put on the headlamps and stuff like that. But that's now not really of any use. So this here is the back plate where all the electronics pass by. I believe that that is the, yeah, this one here runs to a set of, well, that runs to a potentiometer which is there, which you could use to control the speed of the fans properly. It didn't work. It worked to control the speed of the fans just fine, but the fans needed to be on 100% all the time, so sort of rendered it pointless. And that's the arm controls, and this runs off to the helmet, which controlled all the lights and fans in the helmet itself. It didn't turn out perfectly well, so oh well. Right. Oh, hold on a minute. I'm going to have some wires because I need to slide out. To people who doubt how well hot glue holds onto EVA foam, this is actually taking quite a lot of strength. It's really quite tiring. And that's 2 fans. This back clip here, for anyone wondering, was to hold on the waist plate, the same as the two on the chest bit by there, and those were just so it didn't fall off, basically. There was nothing holding it way straight around my waist, so when I only had the clips at the front, it would fall down the back. Common sense after the fact. Now, okay, this back section by here I turned into a ventilator system, so it actually pumps air in, and should have been relatively filtered, but not that well. This here was painted silver when it started, and it was the same colour as that, but some of the load of the paint's fallen off because I didn't prime it. To do that, you're supposed to rub it down first to give all scratches for paint to hang on to, but I didn't know that, and I got it wrong. So, wrong one broke, Carl. The wrong one broke. Whoops. Okay, and there's the other fan. Now, when I was saying earlier that you'll be surprised that the fans didn't work, it's because they're that big. That is a fan. There are 2 of them in order going up here, both blowing at once. They're huge. This here is a little box. It has some controls and a pot in it, and that's it. Again, you can just see it's been chucked on and sprayed. It was originally grey because that section hasn't been touched. Yeah, I think it's recording okay. I hope. Okay, and the centre spine, just 3 sheets of EVA foam stuck together. Now, okay, these back sections where it goes out thicker. 1, they're on the original design. Part 2, I figured the back would need some reinforcement in order to stop it bending and flexing. It didn't need it. And of course, out on the shoulders, you can see these bits here, which are also sticks made to reinforce, bits of doweling, basically sticks there, to reinforce it to make sure that this bit isn't too weak and can actually hold up the weight. Didn't need that either. The top there, the pipe I used to send up to the helmet was a bit of vacuum pipe, and that's it. That's the hole I drilled in the top. Oops. Okay, and this bit on top was originally a measuring jug. It had a measuring jug top and bottom on both. This one is identical construction. It's just a tube of EVA foam. I made this stuff not to come apart, it appears. So, easy way in from the side. So that's fan number 1. That's fan number 2. And you can see pack right. I've identified everything by writing on them. And this is just one that you can see it on. But yeah, I now use grey EVA foam, but this was literally the first tiles I have found of it. And again, it's sealed over in the same way with old newspaper, with making up paper mache, and painted. Now these two, I really can't remember the size of these, but it's like, yeah. I mean, 2 fans that big, I expected that to be able to keep me cool inside what is basically a sauna. Nope, you couldn't even feel the air coming off of both of these. I mean, there's more air coming off it with me spinning it by hand than I got off it in the total time I was working with it. And these here are 12 volt PC fans. Now, when all your control systems and the control board is running on 5 volt, that means I actually had to run multiple voltage supplies around this thing. And then the outputs to the LEDs were run at 3 volt. The output to these was run at 12 volt, and the output to the PLC was run at 5 volt. Meaning I had at least 3 different voltages, but actually it turns out I had about 5 different voltages running around this thing. There were some accidents. I may have blown up the helmet sections at one point, so they're never going to work again. It's quite a downer, but I think I stuck another one of these in the helmet. It was about there, in front of my face. So it was just spinning like that. I was like, this is scary. Please don't do this. I learned from that, and I've corrected it in the newer models. But that was the cooling system. And this is the front of the chest plate. Now this is just all EVA foam. Now I didn't use any design software or anything like that for that. I literally just eyeballed it, as you can tell looking in there. But this bit I remember being particularly awful. So this is going to be fun. As you can see here, there are multiple sections where I just go straight and it's running all together, and the rest of it is silver. Yeah, makes sense. Strong thoughts, Tay. Strong thoughts. He's an old friend. I know. On this chest part, you can see just how bad I was at the time at guessing the sizes. You can see this seam here, where you can see all of the foam, expanding foam I've had to put in, as well as along here and along here. I can pretty much guarantee all the rest of it is that bad, because I just have no idea what sizes I'd need or anything else. I mean, I worked this out over time, so just as a bit, that is terrible. This is the PLC compartment. I had a big box with the control board in it, and I shoved all of that into here. And to run this, I used AA batteries to run a 12 volt supply. So I literally had 16 AA batteries all wired in at once in front of this. And this type of design, the way I did it back then with all the extra reinforcement, it was not light. And I had to carry it around all day. So this hurt to wear for the day. My newer ones, I can lift up with one finger. This one I needed to carry on with both hands because it weighed a ton. In here, I have a little bit of tray with a box inside. Now, with what I've already said about the weight, you wouldn't believe I could make it any worse. But that was for a motorcycle battery. So, lead acid motorcycle battery being held this close to me, being held this position on me. Yep, best idea I ever had there, not putting that in. In the end I went with AA's because the likelihood of them blowing up and me being covered in acid is far lower. Ultimately 0 using alkali batteries, but... And this chest plate here, I didn't even make out of one piece. It is 2, and it's got this reinforcement along the back. Now, I kept this technique of using a solid bit of reinforcement along the back right up until I made my marine last year. And when I made my marine, I went, okay, I don't really care that much, let's see how well it works without. And it's held up just fine, which is sort of odd. And also under here is just dead space, there's nothing in there. And again, these bits here, when you drill out using a hole saw, and you can see the hole in the centre of them, that's just the waste from the centre, just glued on. Nothing special there. What I did forget about that underneath section. Okay, what I did forget about that underneath section, I actually put reinforcement on it to take the weight of the battery. At no point when I was making that did I think, maybe I should make this a little bit lighter and not have to carry that around all day. 'Cause it's easier to think it's going to be easy to carry, but it isn't. So that's the chest box. Next section up, these are the arms, legs, and basically all the appendages. This is in fact the left arm, because it has the control pad on it. That control pad is wired straight into this bit of chock block by here, which has all the wires coming up to the shoulder, where there is an attachment. I used a PC attachment for that, because I had a few left over. The joy of building PCs, eh? Now, fitting this on, it goes on like that. Now, this was a major issue for mobility when I started, but I got it to fit quite well. Now, inside of... let's get that off. Okay. Inside of the arm, to stop it twisting, I used bits of foam, like that, there, and that there. That's just simple upholstery foam, and it squeezes onto your arm, but not tightly enough to cut off circulation, which means this much bigger arm section doesn't rotate around your arm and holds in place. I've been using this for quite some time, and it comes in really useful to stop it just looking bad when you're wearing it. And again, under here, just a door pad style thing, and each one of those buttons I had wired up to outputs, and that means that I could control the board, or at least the control board from it. Now that is just a section of square EVA foam with that sunk into it, and then I did some paper mache over the top so you could just push the surface and you'd hit the buttons and it'd all be okay. And it did work, surprisingly. Now when I first designed it, I intended to have all of this be one solid section and flex like that. But it turns out that doesn't actually work, so I had to abandon it. But a little bit of legacy stuff is that still rotates. And that works exactly the same on both arms by the use of by these, which are just little nuts sticking through, or little bolts with nuts on the ends. And that's how the elbow worked. But since then I have never done movable elbows. I just leave it as a base, and I've replaced the bit around my arm with tubing. But as you could see when I had it on, your arm is still visible. So what I did to solve that, I just wore a grey top underneath, which looked like the inside of the armour and looked like the tubing. Yeah, okay, early days I was making it up, but... okay, I'm not going to cut this one apart because it's got all the wiring. This one, on the other hand, doesn't. So, when I was wearing it, originally the arm would slide down because I didn't have the upholstery foam. To solve it falling off, I put these little straps on, which just make it a fixed maximum distance so they can't fall off. I didn't need it in the end, but again, Still quite useful if you've got a massive arm and you've got something in it that can't take weight. You put one of them on and it keeps all the weight on that strap instead of on your arm, or instead of on the thing that shouldn't be taking weight. This top section by here I made by just blowing up a balloon, putting paper mache over it, and then just cutting that stuff to shape. I mean, I wouldn't do that again. I don't do tops of arms anymore because these are completely covered by shoulders every time. You're never going to see the top of your shoulders coming out of the arm. So why am I covering them? It sort of got a bit silly and I just went, why am I even doing that? And stopped. But that's how I made that really bad shape. Okay. This is the inside of the arm, and this is the forearm section. Literally, I just cut big long plates with slight angles on it, stuck them together. And I mean, I got one plate by here, one there, there, and there. And then that's all glued, and this literally just packing foam. And that rested around my wrist like such. And then it can't move up because the foam's too small, or the gap is, and it can't move down because you need to do something silly like that with your hand to get it in and out in the first place. And that seriously is how I kept my arms on. You can actually see some of these still numbered. You can clearly see the number 4 on there. And this is the leg sections. Now, I actually made these with working hinges in the knee, right there. And this is how I made the knee. There's actually one bit coming up with a circle with a hole cut in the centre, sticking out of the lower section. The top section is the same 2 key shapes, but the hole out the centre of that is stuck in the centre of this one, and they sandwich together to keep the hinge in, and that's how the hinges exist. And then you've got the little kneecap by here. Now this is sprayed on straight onto it as well, but it's still quite a mess. And that's just the kneecap there. I mean, you can see, or you can see here how badly this would have looked if I hadn't have put the paper mache over it. So literally my butt's saved by paper mache so much. And that key shape just goes down the back in there. To make the leg sections, I literally just used 2 cones of differing sizes. The thigh got a thick cone, the leg got, or the lower leg got the, okay, the shin, say it after me, Jay, the shin, okay, good. Okay, so the shin got a smaller cone than the upper leg, and then I stuck this little box on the back because it's there in the original. And this section here is either solid EVA foam or it's a box I didn't seal the end of because why'd I have to on paper mache over it, right? Also, just how thickly I sprayed the paint on. It's actually dripping down and running, as you can see there. And this one here, I actually put it the wrong way out, so you can have to see the texturing. I think by the time I hit the legs, I was rushing so much, I just put the textured side on the outside, and I was like, oh, nuts to it, no one will ever spot it. And no one did. But again, when I was walking first off with these, I didn't have any of the foam, and when I was walking, the joint would like do this while I was walking. So it would be doing that around my ankle. And I mean, when it's about there and your foot's facing that way, it's becoming difficult to walk and it looks silly. But again, with chunks of upholstery foam there and there gripped onto my leg, and I held it, and they worked very well. The upper leg is very similar construction, apart from the fact of the upholstery foam up here just didn't work. So I didn't need it, but it was worth a shot. And this is made out of 2 sections stuck together. which just makes a full cone going all around. The other leg is literally exactly the same. Now you can see sections here where I haven't even bothered painting it properly, and little bits there where I've actually worn through it with the legs rubbing together. Again, when you're walking with two of these next to each other, you just go like that all day, and you're going to lose paint in the centre sections where they touch. You just got to get used to that in armour. You've just got to walk more like a cowboy all the time, and I mean, you get used to it. But you can't walk like you normally would with your legs together, because when you do that, you just rub your legs together and wreck the armour. So it's more of a... just try not to wobble so much because you fall over. But I did learn with this, there's a very unique style to running these things. Now luckily these fell down onto my ankles, so I mean these bits here just gripped. So there was no real need to hold them up, because their full weight was just on my ankles. You're not going to go anywhere. And last up is the waist plate. It's literally just a ring of foam. Got a bend there, and a curve around the back. With all of this here, it's paper mache'd over, and this is this bit on the back is just two bits of foam stuck together, but as you can see there, the gap is so bad that I have to stick extra bits of foam in it, and then I did a ring around, but you can see there I didn't measure it right and I made tons of mistakes, and I'm quite sure there was just a big block of foam stuck on there. As you can see, there is a big block of foam stuck on the back by here, and there's another one that end as well. That's just a ring of 10mm foam. And if the light would catch it, you can see that it's just nothing. Now here is the sections that I used to hold it together, because I've got webbing with clips and another load of clips, and then another load and another clip for the back. And those all held it, so it should hover around my waist height. But something about wearing armour that they don't tell you. Part 1, it's a sauna and you will roast your butt off for the entire day, bring plenty of water. And part 2, your legs are here. You sit. Your legs are in that position. You can't sit. And to sit, you'd have to do that. I mean, like that, and you've torn the seams back there, you've torn the seams on the front, it's all breaking. So once you're in this armour, you are not getting out, and you are standing for the whole day. And if you've made it too heavy, don't. Again, I learned that making this, but again, to note, these bends are pretty much permanent at this point. And they are heat bent, so just a hot air gun on them until it changes colour a little, and then bend it and hold it there till it cools down and it stays in that shape. Again, do that well ventilated area. Don't do it in a sealed room with no ventilation like this one. To note, whenever I craft in here now, I have the door open and a load of fans blowing air outside and cycling it around. I don't want to do that again, trust me. So that's about it for that. Now, when I made this, the PLC that I was controlling it was an Arduino. I can program them quite effectively, so it worked out quite well. But what I'd say is, even with fans this big, you can't get air up into the helmet, because they're in free-flowing air going into a hoover pipe, but they got no air up to the helmet whatsoever. They weren't even noticeable, the amount they were putting out. I mean, I've got a little fan the size of that centerpiece now, which clears the visor in my new helmets. These fans produced the two of them together produce less air than the little one. So again, put the fan where you need it. And also, if you're going to mix voltages, please look after the colours. Don't do what I did and literally run everything in red and black. Because if you can't tell your voltages apart, you will blow up some LEDs thinking they're thinking they're fan wiring, which I also did. And again, with fans in Armour, you need them on full all the time. There's no point putting in speed control. It looks fancy, it's cool. Don't do it, it's a waste of time. And of course the 50 odd transistors that I had inside this thing. Yeah, I didn't need them because they make 5-volt fans, which are far more effective. So it's also something I've done in the newer designs. I no longer carry a car battery around with me. I no longer carry around 30 odd, like, it's either 30 or 16 little batteries, AA's. I no longer do that either. I now run it all off a phone charger at 5 volts and everything works just fine, which is a far better design. So, okay, there you go. That's my first Armour dissected. I miss it already. Oh well. Okay. Okay, and that was my first attempt at making Armour. I did that ages and ages ago, but I hope you found something in here useful and you're actually able to learn from it, because there's nothing better than other people's mistakes to learn from. And again, Armour is addictive. I made this one, I made tons and tons more, and I just couldn't stop. And now I've got a Space Marine taking up my entire production office. That's bound to happen. Okay. So, if you're starting off making your own Armour, good luck. If you've been making your own Armour for a while and just after what not to do, this was a good place to come, really. Most of my stuff. And also, good luck.